It's a great honor and a privilege to introduce Bernhard Woolfson. Bernhard, you come from Liverpool originally.
I do, yes.
And you had a connection with Rabbi Solomon Schonfeld?
Yes, it was a family connection. It started between my late grandfather, my Zayda Moshe Landsberg, who lived in the East End of London, and he was friendly with Rabbi Schonfeld's father. And the connection continued between the families, and in fact my uncle, a man called Stanley Goldberg, was very involved in the early years of the Jewish secondary school movement. So that continued the contact between the family and Rabbi Schonfeld. Thereafter, Rabbi Schonfeld always showed an interest in the family, and whenever he came to Liverpool, he stayed with us, and it was a great pleasure and a great honour for us to entertain him.
And can I ask, his early years when he helped save Jews before the Shoah, before the Holocaust, and after the Holocaust, when he went back to Poland, were you aware of his activities in helping rescue Jews from?
I wasn't aware of his activities. I wasn't aware of his activities at the time. I was only a very little boy at that time, but I had friends who had been brought to England by Rabbi Schonfeld and who were living in Liverpool, who had been adopted, if you can use the word, by Jewish families in Liverpool. And I was, as I say, I was only a kid. I was only 4 when the war started, and it was really just a vague understanding of some of the background. It was only in later years when, because of my other interest in Rabbi Schonfeld, that I began to read about Rabbi Schonfeld's activities. And in fact, I have an autographed copy of his book, which he very kindly gave me on the occasion of my engagement.
Wonderful. And do you think he's been recognized for the achievements that he did?
I don't think he has been recognized. Unfortunately, alongside the brilliant work which he did on 2 fronts, on the saving of Jewish lives and on the creation of a Jewish schools movement, he had to tread on a number of toes as he went along. And this gave him no pause. He just carried on, and unfortunately there were people who were not so well disposed towards him, who perhaps had been overtaken by him or ignored by him as they thought. He was always for getting on with the job, and he wasn't going to let anything slow him down. The result was, in his later years, when unfortunately he wasn't well, and perhaps continued his activities longer than perhaps he should have done. Some people have concentrated on those unfortunate years towards the end of his life, when there were undoubtedly problems, and have forgotten the main thrust of his work, which was just incredible. Anybody who'd done what he did, just in the schools movement or just in saving lives, should be a hero, and he's done both. And yet, as you say, and unfortunately I agree, he's not as recognised as he should be. He really deserves a really good biography.
And can I ask, what would you say his legacy was?
His legacy is a twofold legacy relating to the 2 aspects of his life's work. On the one hand, there are X number of Jews alive today who, but for him, would not be alive. They or their parents or their grandparents were saved by him, and but for him would have died in the Shoah. So he's got a huge mark on the community, in that there are, I don't know how many people as generations go by, but it's no small number. It's a large number of people.
They say he saved over 3,000 children.
It could well be. That I don't know. Well, certainly not off the top of my head, but it was a significant number. And if you multiply that as the generations go forward, then obviously it's an even bigger number. And then you've got, parallel to that, a series of schools, which again probably wouldn't have existed but for him. Prior to him, there was the JFS, and people have often compared the JFS, which is a very good school. Two of my grandchildren went to JFS, and I'm very happy with what they experienced there. But as was said, the original purpose of the JFS was to create Englishmen out of Jews, and the purpose of Rabbi Schonfeld's school was to create Jews out of Englishmen. And you've got the schools, and you've got all those who benefited from having attended those schools. The legacy is absolutely immense. It's immense, and it's a source of great pride that we used to have the honour of hosting this man whenever he found it necessary to be in Liverpool. So that's my memories of Rabbi Schonfeld. And in fact, there was a very nice thing in his later years when already he wasn't so well, but my family donated a Beis Medrash in one of the shuls in Liverpool, shul in Liverpool, and the occasion arose for consecrating it. And we insisted that the rabbi chosen to come to Liverpool to consecrate the Beis Medrash was Rabbi Schonfeld. And it was so nice to mark the association in that way.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, my pleasure.